Yesterday we spoke about the concept of true love. What is true love? Whether true love exists in this world, and we will continue to build on that discussion today, more from a practical standpoint. Different scenarios. We looked at different scenarios yesterday, so we'll continue to build on that discussion, and finally we'll get into the true love aspect of it as well. Tomorrow, what is some of the role models around it? What is the um, aspirational state for all of us? We will build on that tomorrow. So let me share my screen and then we will get started with our opening prayers. So let me share and we'll get underway. Yes, sec. Hope you're able to see my screen. Okay, so again,
जी
Radhe,
all good
Radhe, let's get started with our opening prayers. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanurmardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagat Guru. Krishnam Vande Jagat Guru. All right, so Radha Radha, good morning, good evening to all of you. Welcome once again. So let's get started with our topic. So since it is Gopi Prem Divas, Valentine Day, more popularly known as, so we've been tackling this topic, what is true love? We'll do a quick recap and then we'll get more deeper into this topic. It's a very fascinating topic, and this is an emotion. We spoke about it yesterday that drives the whole universe, including animals as well. Right? So if you look at animals, they are pretty territorial about their kids, and even a cat can become a tiger if somebody challenges their kid or tries to do any harm. Right? This bond is very, very strong, and with humans, as we see, we take it to another level altogether in all of our relationships. Right? So it's a governing emotion in this world. Can manifest in in forms of different relationships, and we try to put it in perspective from a scriptural standpoint. So what is the definition of love? What is true love? And can we find it? When I say it, means true love in the world around us, right? So we had a pretty engaging conversation yesterday. Let's continue on that. So a quick recap on what we had done yesterday for the benefit of participants who might be joining in for the first time. This is a 3 session, um, you know so Chaitanya Charitamrita says the desire to gratify one's own senses is kama, lust. But the desire to please the senses of Lord is prema, love. Now, prem, love, is a very deep concept. We use this word loosely in a lot of ways in this world, right? Loosely use it, overuse it, even abuse it. So we will try to understand what is actually love purely from a scriptural standpoint and see how close we can come to that definition in our day-to-day dealings in different relationships that we have. So true love, right? So let's move on. So we spoke about this thing, right? A kid decided to play a prank, planted in certain goats, and named it all the way. And the quest for the fifth goat is continuing in that school where they planted the all the 6 goats, and that fifth goat is not there at all, right? So the reason we planted that is true love. The quest for true love is like the quest for this fifth goat, which doesn't exist. You can continue to look for it for eternity, but you'll not be able to find it. Why? Because true love is a very profound concept, and from a scriptural standpoint, it explains that there are 3 kind of relationships, 3 manifestations of what we call love in the world, and those are, when we apply scriptural lens, those are 3 categories. Are the first one is lust, calm. The second one is business, vyapar. The third one is love or prem itself. So elaborating it further, this basically means each one of these categories. Let's take a quick look at this as well. So recap again. The lust calm aspect of it is where our goal is to take in a relationship. It's like you go to a bank or you go to an ATM and you simply take withdrawals. You only do withdrawals in that relationship, which is called exploitation as well. It can happen even in, I don't know if it happens these days or not, like slavery. A lot of countries have had that history. That will fall into that relationship where it's an exploitation and only take aspect of it. Now, lust, if you look at the word itself, there are sensual connotation to it, but it's not limited to the sensual desire alone. Scriptures inform us that any self-seeking nature or intention is lust. When you are seeking it for yourself, like the definition in Chaitanya Charitamrita says, when you are doing it for your own sake, for the sake of your senses, it becomes lust at that point. So any relationship which is only take is lust. Then the second aspect of is called business or vyapar. This is reciprocity, give and take business. Such relationship is barter. And this is where most of the relationship in the world fall. Right? No matter which that relationship, give and take. As long as the healthy balance of deposits and withdrawals is maintained, that relationship sustains. No matter which relationship it is. Okay, it could be a father-son relationship, it could be a relationship with your parents, with your friends, with your spouse, with your kids. Every relationship is about give and take. Your mind will immediately rebel and say, no, I just want to give, to my kids. No, think about it deeply. When they'll grow up and they start challenging you, your love will start diminishing as well, right? And a lot of people say, oh my God, what kind of kids I've gotten now. So it is a function of how much you are able to give and take in that particular relationship. It may start off by giving, right, when they are totally dependent on you, but as the time progresses, it becomes a function of a lot of other factors. So that is where we spoke about, this is where the world is, this is how the world operates. Now this barter system or this give and take or reciprocity, as long as two individuals are mature enough to maintain that balance, delicate balance, mindfully, consciously, then the relationship is maintained. If there is a balance that tilts, more withdrawals, less deposits, or more deposits, less withdrawals, we'll talk about that as well, then the relationship is a little in imbalance and it can manifest in a lot of ways. The third aspect we spoke about, which our scriptures say love prem, is a very deep concept when the goal is to give and give. Okay, so this is something which is goal is to serve and give happiness to the other. It is true love. When your aim is to give happiness to the other, that is true love. Exceedingly rare and sublime, right? Unsurprisingly, it is exceedingly rare and sublime. And it is in serving one gets served and it's giving one receives, is what our scriptures are telling us. Counterintuitive. Tomorrow we will look at the examples to tell or to understand how it operates, actually, how it works. Right? There has to be some examples and role models around it as well for us to be able to appreciate that concept. Now, in world, we can try to, it's an aspirational state. We can try to get close to it as best as possible. And then today we'll tackle some practical questions as well, right? What if you do give in this world? Do you end up becoming a doormat? What if the relationship that you are in is abusive? Right? The other person doesn't care. It's like only one-sided. You are doing that. All those kind of scenarios. How would you approach that scenario from a give standpoint, right? And is it even practical in the world if you are stuck with this kind of a relationship, right? So we'll try to tackle those questions as well. And then this is where most of the world operates. So business vyapar is where majority falls, and then if the relationship is tilted more in favor of just take, I mean, that is called lust. It could happen in scenarios, especially if you're stuck with a consultant who's taking all of your money and not giving you a green card, or an employer who's taking the last ounce of your blood and not giving you enough remuneration or the money around it. Those kind of exploitations are called, will fall into that category. But typically, if you are getting fairly paid, if you are maintaining a balance, you help somebody, you get the help back, you are doing a division of labor and stuff like that, then it's a kind of a vyapar or a transactional stuff. Okay, so that is how we are conditioned. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Unfortunately, what happens is we take that mindset to God as well. When we go to temple, we do the Vyapar there as well. All right, here goes my, 1 kilo laddu for Hanumanji so that I can get married, or I get the next promotion, or this thing happens. So we end up doing transaction or Vyapar there as well. But scriptures tell us when you approach it from that standpoint, that is not the right way to do. You need to approach it with an understanding that true love is only about giving. Tat Sukh Sukhitvam is the statement in Narad Bhakti Darshan, which says Tat Sukh Sukhitvam, in your happiness lies my happiness, which is a very advanced concept, not easy to achieve or to practice. But it is a good aspirational state that we need to get into, because this is a concept that will help us from a spiritual standpoint. When we approach God, this is a concept that needs to be at the back of our mind. Now, what is its practical implication is what we are going to talk about today, from a day-to-day dealing standpoint. We spoke about divine laws. We don't have a choice but to seek happiness. It's a divine law. Nobody can claim I don't need happiness. Everybody has to, because we are part of, eternal part of the fragmental part of the ocean of bliss. And as a part, we are seeking the whole. So we have to seek happiness. There's no other choice. The other divine law was that material world cannot provide fulfilling and lasting happiness. It cannot. Right? We spoke about this. You can grow grass on the top of a tortoise shell, or you can extract oil out of sand, or you can pass a camel up from the eye of a needle, but you cannot extract happiness from this material world. It's a very simple concept. Our scriptures have told it very clearly. No matter how hard you try, you will never be able to say, aha, now I have attained that bliss that I was always looking for. It is like living on 99 cricket. You are stuck on 99 where you're not able to score a century. It is living on 99. You will never get that perfect happiness because you are divine, and what you're trying to seek is material, is what our scriptures are telling us, right? So because of that, now then we said that this is the trajectory that we are on. We are seeking for this perfect happiness since time eternity, multiple lifetimes, because this perfect happiness is bliss of God. Actually, one of the other definitions of God is bliss. God is bliss. God does not have bliss. It is bliss. And we are seeking bliss only. Everybody seeking God, whether they believe in God or not. Okay. So bliss of God is what we are seeking. That brought us to the third law. That means because we have been seeking that bliss, we have no choice but to be selfish until we have attained that perfect happiness. No, unless you are a saint or you are God yourself, you have to be selfish. You don't have a choice. We are all selfish. Okay, believe it or not, we are all selfish. Everything that we are doing is operating from our self-interest. Even when we do it for others, let's say you're doing it for kids, that is also driven by a motivation for self-interest, because end of the day, until we have attained that perfect bliss, we really don't have a choice but to continue to be selfish. Now, in which direction we need to be selfish, that would dictate the trajectory of our spiritual growth. We have to seek bliss. We don't have a choice. Which direction we seek bliss, we do have a choice. We have to be selfish. We have no choice. Are we selfish for our soul or for our body and senses? We have a choice. So choices we always have, but in some conditions we don't have a choice when it comes to seeking bliss or continuing to be selfish until we attain that perfect happiness. That brought us to this. Okay, if we are selfish, how can this be possible? The love prem aspect of it, where we are saying you have to give, give, give. How can you give when you are not there yourself? You can give something to somebody when your cup is full. When your cup is not full, how can you give it to somebody? Okay, that is a very deep concept as well. So, but then in give and take, we can always have some kind of a credit debit, right? In a relationship, we could be on the giving side. We might possibly be leaving something on the table. That is always an option there. And that is what we are going to talk about from a practical standpoint. What does this give mean? And what are the implications? And what are some of the challenges that might come when you are talking about give as the material world? By the way, this concept is reserved for God. Okay, the give. In the world, how do we practically put it to practice is something we will have a bit of a discussion on as well. So let's move on. Now, then we spoke about these two spectrums. This is our world. So which end of the spectrum our relationship fall under? At work, it will fall under Vyapar, if you are getting fairly compensated for what you are doing, or if you are taking breaks and still getting paid for, then it's basically shifting between Vyapar or lust, calm aspect of it, where you are doing it for your, you might be taking advantage wherever you can, or your employer might be taking advantage of you, right? So it can hover between lust and the vyapar aspect of it. Then we spoke about the other relationship with spouse, with kids, with parents, with relatives and friends and all that stuff. So it's a delicate balance you have to maintain. We also spoke that the closest relationship that comes to selfless love in material world is the umbilical cord relationship that a mother and the child have. Not even a father and the child can have that. It's only reserved for mother because of the special relationship that she has with the kid, because she's instrumental in bringing forth that new life, right? And she provides for it for 9 months, the free lodging and boarding by keeping that child in her womb. So that relationship is the closest that any relationship can come to the selfless love. Other all relationships are tainted with selfishness. Having said that, even that relationship is tainted with selfishness. Okay, slight. You cannot have a completely selfless relationship even in that, but it is the one which comes closest to that. So we spoke about this as well. Now let's move on. Now, soul, body. Now let's talk about this thing. Now, we are the soul, spiritual soul, having a bodily experience, right? So this is our true identity. Now, on one hand, we have divine love. Now, divine love, as it is stated in our scriptures, is the top prize of God. Now, if they say, Sami, what do you want? What is the topmost prize for a soul? Spiritual prize, so to say, it is divine love. Love is a governing emotion, and divine love is something which God does not give so easily. Tomorrow we'll talk about what it takes to get that prize. So this is the topmost prize from a spiritual standpoint, to get divine love. Okay, it is reserved, it is something God keeps with himself, because once he gives you divine love, he's subservient to you. Okay, so that is why it's an entrance of God that one needs to clear from a lot of angles. He's going to evaluate you, and then only you get that prize of divine love. So it is his topmost prize. So because we do not haven't gotten that divine love as yet, okay, there is an inherent seeking or yearning for it. We write like mame vansho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna is saying that mame vansho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana, that you are my fragmental part only, right? So when we are fragmental part of that perfect bliss, we will continue to yearn for it, right? Part seeks the whole. Water comes out from the ocean. It takes the whole cycle, evaporation, condensation, and then rainfall, or comes back as rain or as snow, and then back into the river and merges with the ocean. So it takes a complete cycle. So the drop that comes out from the ocean eventually comes back to the ocean. Similarly, because we are the drop of that perfect bliss, we are seeking that bliss. However, since we haven't gotten it, the plot is thickened by the three gunas of Maya. And in this particular case, when this divine love that we are seeking, we are not getting it, right? And it comes, we are under the sway of Rajas Gun. We have three gunas of Maya, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. When it comes in contact with Rajas Gun, what happens? Something interesting happens. Okay. Now, soul is associating with the material energy in form of the body and mind and senses. Now, this divine love for God, it gets transformed into lust. It's like you filter it through something, like you do that, what do you call that? Some people who are fond of chai, they say, I will have doodh patti. So milk is pure, you put patti and then you pour it, it gets its essence, right? So similarly, when this divine love, we haven't gotten it, but when it that craving, or that the manifestation of it, when it comes in contact with the rajas gun, it transforms into lust. We have to get something, right? So rajas, it takes us, our mind and senses, it start craving for something in this world. So when it comes in contact with rajas, this transformation, this is how it happens. So if you look at this glass, you pour water in it, there is a reflection. You see, it's a reflection. Now, what our scriptures tell us, the lust that we see is nothing but a perverted reflection of the divine love that the soul is craving for. It's a perverted reflection for it. And since divine love is a very, very strong sentiment, if when people, they start progressing on the path of devotion, they start getting a semblance of it on the way. it can be intoxicating, just the abhas or the semblance of it itself, because it's a very powerful emotion. Right? Some people, they are sitting and they start flowing with tears. Why does it happen? Because it's a very powerful emotion. When soul comes in contact with, even a trace of that divine love of God, uh, you have no choice but to shed tears at that point, because it's a very strong emotion, and our heart currently does not have a capacity to take it, because the vessel is not yet prepared, right? Spirituality is all about preparing that vessel which can hold that divine love. Because it is such a powerful emotion, so is the perverted reflection of it as well. That is why, if you look at it, the lust is very powerful. So to desire to gratify one's own senses, the kama, whether it is sensual or otherwise, it's very, very powerful. We succumb to it. And there's a reason for that, because it's a reflection of the other extreme, the other of this spectrum, which is the divine love. Because that is strong, this is equally strong, but in a different way. One is related to the soul, one is related to the mind, body, and senses, because we, all those spiritual souls, are in currently in the conception that we are this body, mind, sense complex, and we keep catering to it. And that is why this emotion will continue to dominate until that aspect is put into perspective through repeated contemplation, grace of God, and a lot of spiritual practice. That, one of it is what we are doing by going through this knowledge itself. So, like Chaitanya Charitamrita says, that to desire to gratify one's own senses is kama, and desire to please the senses of Lord is prema. So that prema aspect will start manifesting when you start cleansing your heart. Right? So when you start cleansing your antakaran, then you will start getting closer to your real identity of being a soul. And then divine love or the prema aspect is a natural manifestation of it. But as long as we are further away from it, we are covered with the mode of ignorance, and because of which we are thinking of ourselves as a mind body complex, senses body senses complex, lust will continue to dominate our mind in different forms and manners, right? So this is the reason why lust is such a strong emotion, because it is a direct correlation with divine love, which we haven't gotten, and it's a perverted reflection of it. So there is a technicality. That is why we are self-seeking, and that is why the karma aspect is so common. Now, where does lust come from? It comes from Bhagavad Gita itself, talks about it in 3.37. It says Kamesha Krodhesha Rajoguna Samudbhava. It is the lust alone which is born of contact with the mode of passion, later transformed into anger, know it to be sinful, all devouring enemy in the world. So this comes from the Rajas Gun, if you look at it that way, right? Now I spoke about that getting closer to our identity of that being a soul will happen when our antakaran starts cleansing, right? So let's look at it a little graphically around that. What are the possibilities? And that's where we're going to have a bit of a discussion today. Now, the Love Foundation is it's an interesting quote, right, where it talks about when we look to serve, it's a service attitude. Okay, I'll come back to that. Let's first get into the discussion. So here are the four quadrants. The first quadrant, okay, these are the quadrants. So on one hand, we have pure mind and impure mind. Right now, we have an impure mind, whether you like it or not, that's how it is. It's a work in progress. We need to cleanse it. Antakaran Shuddhi is the only agenda of human life. So we have an impure mind. The day it becomes pure, we'll be situated in the perfect knowledge that we have, right? Then we will know basically our real identity as a soul, and we'll start experiencing the bliss, and the prem aspect of it that we are talking about would automatically manifest. In fact, as we start getting closer to that, if your antakaran is 10% cleansed, 10% manifestation would have already happened, basically, where the only thing that you can offer is love at that point, right? If you look at saints, they are 100% there. So the other two thing is, one is material love, temporary happiness, unhappiness, basically. And the second is, the other side is eternal happiness, which is the divine love we are talking about. Now, having an impure mind and eternal happiness, this is not possible. When you have an impure mind, you cannot have eternal happiness. The happiness that you get is temporary. Somebody is having shots or drinking, and they're feeling high. Next day, ask them, are you able to, what are you feeling? They're feeling the hangover. In fact, that bliss keeps on diminishing over time. It is temporary, it diminishes over time, and it is not everlasting. So with impure senses, no matter how much we indulge in whatever thing we indulge, it is going to be transient, temporary, and not something that you can maintain, right? I mean, if once, and scriptures say bliss is something, once it comes, it never goes away. Can we hold on to that bliss? No, we cannot. And in fact, another definition of bliss in our scriptures is pratikshana vardhamanam. It should just keep on increasing. We don't have that understanding, right? How can some bliss keep on increasing? But this is what the spiritual bliss is, right? Saints have told the same. Scriptures say the same. It's very difficult to understand. How can something keep on increasing? Now, in material world, it's just the reverse. You eat one rasgulla, oh, wow, how wonderful it is. Second time, a little less. Third time, a little less. Fourth time, a little less. So it keeps on diminishing. So this quadrant is not possible. Then the second one is an avoid zone where you have an impure mind, and then material, you're falling for the lust aspect of it, going after their sensory indulgence only. And then most of the people, they're trying to work on, especially on the path of spirituality, they're trying to cleanse their mind, but it's still hung up in material attractions and things that fascinate them materially. So it's a journey to move from this quadrant towards this, where you finally go towards eternal happiness, aspirational or desired zone, and of course the mind is completely purified. Now, when it talks about give, these are the three questions I want to quickly tackle and then open it up, because we have a hard stop today, so we still have time. So I think I'm doing okay on time. What if in the process of giving we are taken advantage of? Right? That is one question, because we talk about give. How can you maintain this dichotomy of give and take in this material world, but say give in the case of God? Not approach him with that kind of a mindset. It's very difficult, right? So how do you practice give? And can we truly practice it in this world? Should we practice it? These are all valid questions, right? The second question I got was, do I need to become a doormat? You keep on giving, another person is taking advantage of you, right? Exploiting you possibly in a relationship. You could be, or you could be in a, how would you give in an abusive relationship, right? These are all valid questions. So I think the whole idea about this thing is that this is definitely an aspirational state to give, but it has to be calibrated depending upon the relationship that you are in, right? So if you're in an abusive relationship, if you can, what you can't cure, you endure, right? But if you can't even endure, you need to, of course, draw some lines there as well, right? Because then you will be not only taking that on for yourself, but also promoting that kind of a behavior as well, right? So the idea here is forgive, forgive the person, but do not forget the lesson. So when you are forgiving somebody, this is the key concept. Forgive the person in your heart, but do not forget the lesson. You cannot be dumb. Spirituality does not tell us to be dumb. Buddhi in the world, man in God. That means you have to be smart. You have to protect your interests and operate in a manner that you can nurture your spirituality. You can continue to do things that you want to do and not end up becoming a doormat. That's not the objective of spirituality at all. So you need to calibrate it as per the relationship that you are in. But the key thing is walking away from that relationship, or enduring in during the course of enduring that relationship. Are you becoming bitter or not? That is a self call we have to take, because if you are doing that, then you are renting your mind for free to somebody and not helping your antakaran either, right? Bitterness is going to dirty it further. So spirituality says forgive the person, but do not forget the lesson. And when you forgive, you are already giving. You're giving, like in world, forgiving is like giving only. Um, but it doesn't mean you don't learn the lesson around it and don't calibrate your response, or what you need to do based on the situation that you are in. So and this dichotomy has to be handled in spirituality. So if you look at some of the concepts, Karam Yoga talks about having acceptance, but does it mean you need to give up? No, both have to go hand in hand. You cannot give up until you have done it your best and you intuitively feel that you have tried your best. So both concepts have to go hand in hand. Now, if you surrender, does it mean that you take everything that comes your way? From a material standpoint, of course not. That concept is reserved for God. Having acceptance is around situation and circumstances. But if you are being exploited, scriptures are telling us it is not restricting you for taking the corrective action around it. There's a beautiful story about Narad and that snake, right? So snake was asked to do bhakti. He heard that lecture and said, all right. Now it became very docile, and when it becomes very docile, next thing Narad sees is it got squashed by kids around, because the snake is not doing what it's supposed to do, not even taking evasive action, or why when the people would just squish him. So Narad told him, it doesn't mean that you stop hissing. You don't have to buy it, but hissing is well within your prerogative, or well within your rights to do that, to protect your interest. Even to progress spiritually, you have to protect your interest. You have to, in order to nurture it, you need to be in a good mind space. So in that sense, whatever action is needed, you calibrate your response, because you will know what your tolerance limit is, right? But at the same time, the bitterness aspect has to be tackled, because that's something uh, which is not good for us. It dirties our antakaran. So taking corrective action, taking a stance for yourself, calibrating your response on what is needed is all fine. Forgiving is fine, but do not forget the lesson. We need to be smart about how we are going about it. But in any other relationship where you have a give and take, it's a healthy relationship, then it's always a good strategy to be more on the giving side, right? Because then now you're getting closer to that true aspect of it. True love, very difficult in this world, right? But if you are more on the giving side, you are tilting the scale and doing yourself a favor, not only from a material standpoint, but from a spiritual standpoint. It's an aspirational state. Whether we can do it or not is a big thing, but it is definitely an aspirational state, right? Yesterday, I gave an example. This guy goes to Starbucks and he says the small coffee, the medium one is for $5, but he orders the small one, which is for $3, so that he can leave something on the table as a tip. So that is a good attitude to have in general in life with every relationship, right? That example I gave, right? We talk about true love aspect of it in material, real, right? A lot of people, they fall in love and they say, okay, we are going to live forever and take different, so many oaths and stuff like that. Um, but then, that test can be, it can be put to test in situations. And then we see, because what happens is that love, the foundation of that love is based on some kind of an attribute or the guna in another person. When somebody marries, why do they marry? They say, all right, that guy is well settled, and has, he's probably going to get green card or American citizenship as well, right? Or whatever you find lucrative. Or some people are looking at surrendering it now. But the fact is, we look at those gunas. Or why you marrying this girl? Okay, she looks good, and she's in a nice job, or the guy has a good bank balance. We look at those kind of attributes. So what if those things go away? Are you going to fall out of love at that point? It will happen, because you did not, your focus at that point was more and more the gunas. So Narad Bhakti Darshan says that true love is gun rahitam. That means you don't look at the gunas. Kamna rahitam, you don't have any desires or expectations. And so I think your own seeking, not even a trace of that. That is what true love is. So in the world, it's a good aspirational state. Practice it as best as you can, but you need to calibrate it based on the relationship that you're in. This is how it goes, right? So there's a beautiful story Swamiji talks about, that there's a old man. So he was getting his stitches removed, and he asked the doctor, how long it will take. The doctor said it might take about an hour or so. He said, all right, can you free me up by noon? Sooner by noon. So doctor says, why? He said, I have to go and meet my wife for lunch. So doctor says, but she's suffering from dementia. She doesn't even recognize you. He said, I know that. She doesn't recognize me. She has forgotten me, but I have not forgotten that she's my wife, right? So those kind of scenarios are there in life. So you calibrate your response where you have an option to give away and not walk away. But it really depends on the situation, relationship you are in. The sooner, the closer we can get to that give part of it, especially if you can afford it, the closer we are to the concept of true love, which is truly reserved for God only. Tomorrow we'll talk about what is the epitome of true love, and what are some of the tools we can employ to get closer to that state, and try to appreciate it through some analogies and stories inspired from our scriptures. So we will conclude this discussion tomorrow. It's going to be a fascinating discussion, so do join. But now I'll open it up for any questions that you may have on what we have spoken about or discussed today. We have time. So 9:35. Yeah, we do have time. Jyoti, go ahead, Jyoti. So love fascinates you, huh? Go ahead. It's an interesting topic, right? Go ahead.
Radhe Radhe Nitinji. My question is, so you have mentioned it a couple of times that when you are in material world, do whatever you need to do. But I find really hard to make a decision sometimes that how I should act based on some situation. So you have given one very good example of snake, but can you give some practical life scenarios which help me to understand how to decide what to do and when to take action, and to what extent I should decide on things?
Okay, so what is the situation now? You have to tell the situation because it's a very broad, open-ended question. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so if you can give me an example, if you are willing to share, or anonymize it in some way, then it'll help. Maybe you can put it in the feedback tracker. So one of the things I can tell is that, right, if you want to drive home a point to somebody, you don't have to yell, right? Or you may be yelling, but if you're not feeling angry, you can be loud and yet not be angry, right? That is hissing, not bad. So the thing is inside, what is going on inside you at that point, right? So you might be putting on an act, but if inside you're harboring that sentiment, that is not good.
Mm-hmm.
It's an inner
Yeah.
game. It's an inner game. It's not what you're doing externally through your mind and you through your senses, basically. What is going on inside you is truly counts in every act, right?
Okay.
You're doing an opposite action, but if your intention is completely different, that is what God notes, right? And that you
Mm-hmm.
calibrate based on the situation that you are in. Um, but if you can give me a particular situation, if you're willing to share that, then we can probably talk about it. And we have a lot of participants who might be able to help you out as well. So tell me the situation and then we can maybe think about.
Okay. Uh, I can give two, three. There are two, three scenarios which are there in my mind. One, um, one I'll share here, and one I'll put it on a feedback tracker. Will that be okay?
That's fine. Yeah, let's quickly take one and then we can.
Yeah. So because sometimes when it comes to networking in the field, so we always talk about do interact with people but don't interact too much. So be part of it but don't be completely part of it. So there is one place where, because even if I'm with the people around my so whatever I have learned through daily wisdom from Bhagavad Gita and morning gems, I keep on putting into practice. But then sometimes I realize that I become too much spiritual even in the material world, and some, not in a very larger or a very greater extent, but people do take advantage of that. So there I feel how much I should be part of material world and how much I should act according to our knowledge what we have gained.
Yeah, it's a tricky question again, right? Again, depends on the context that you are in. So in Rome, you have to behave like Romans. Does it require you to compromise on your value systems, right? If that is the question, then we have to look at that particular context itself. I have seen people, see people say who are in sales. I'm going to talk about a corporate environment only. People who are in
Mm,
sales, they have to do all that stuff, right? Hanky panky
mm,
stuff and all that fluff. But I've seen people who stick to values and still are able to make sales as well. So really depends on how much conviction you carry around it. You don't have to really lower your game to
mm,
succeed everywhere.
mm,
But at the same time, it's very contextual. Like we spoke about the example of great kings, Janak, Prahlad, Ambrish, and all. They had to do the needful, right? Samadand Bhed, whatever is needed to do that. So it depends on the situation, the context that you are in, how you can play the game fair and square without compromising on some of these principles. So it's very contextual. If you
mm.
let's have an offline conversation and then I
Yeah,
can distill that message and present it in the session itself. But
yeah, yeah.
very contextual, so we have to go through the situation and then talk about it.
Yes, yes. Can we connect sometime later after the session?
Let's do that. I've
Thank
created
you.
that tracker that might help provide that.
Okay, okay.
But we
Thank you,
distill that
Nitin.
message and present it. Yeah, let's do that. Yes, Sandhya, go ahead.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. So, regarding the slide which is up and the discussion which was going on, I think maybe you mentioned this, but I again want to explicitly say this that two things can really help in dealing with such situations. One is knowing that most of the people around us are bound by Maya. So they will be driven by that kind of motive because it is ignorance. And it's for we are fortunate that we are getting to learn about this, but that is something that will dawn upon everyone as and when it is planned by God. And second thing is having our goal very clearly there always, whenever we are operating in this world. So if I know that my goal is to serve God, and ultimately whatever I'm doing, it is to achieve that. So then I think we will be able to find out ways to reduce any conflicts and just move towards our goal. Understanding that people around are operated by Maya. So yeah.
True. So when we do understand, then we cut slack to people as well. We are all operating out of self-interest. We forget that. And we are very quick to call out somebody else. Oh my God, that person is working like that. But how about us, right? We also operate out of self-interest only. Our intellect has this tendency to take a moral stand on things. I am good. I am better. The other person is doing that. But the fact of the matter is we're all selfish. So what if the other person is, everybody's working out of the self-interest. We do the same, right, with others as well. What's a big deal? There you say, I mean, is it an opportunity where you can evolve spiritually, right, in that particular situation? But that doesn't mean you let go of your career and become a martyr at that point as well, right? So there's no right or wrong response, but you figure out, exercise your prudence around the situation that you are in. It's because these are very contextual. Life is all about gray, dealing with gray, and this dichotomy will continue until we become God realized, right? Those principles, how do they go hand in hand? You say you be humble, and then people talk about having a healthy health self-esteem. Now true self-esteem comes from becoming truly humble. How do you handle both of those dichotomy? That is also spirituality, right? So these concepts, they may seem one negating the other, or oxymoron as they call it, but truly not. If you really think deeply about it, they actually enforce each other. Right? Other day we're talking about having a healthy self-esteem can only be possible when you become, the more humble you become, the more confident and better health self-esteem you'll start having. But people thinking, no, by projecting a false image, they will get that. That's not the case. But when you truly understand everybody is operating out of self-interest, part of your anxiety will go away. And then you keep the big picture in mind that end of the day, you're not playing a horizontal game with people, you're playing a vertical game as well with God, right? You keep that big picture in mind, then you get the required help as well, and something within you will guide you as well around that particular situation. But yeah, it's pretty nuanced conversation, so it really depends on the situation you are in, and then how we can deal with it without really compromising or lowering our game from a spiritual perspective. Let's talk more about that. Let's take a few more hands. I see Samiran. Samiran, please go ahead.
Rather, in the meantime, there is a सवाल in the chat window from Pooja ji. Normal
Okay.
and tricky सवाल. How to decide what is right, what is wrong, what is good, or what is bad in this competitive and materialistic world? What should be the basis to decide this? Ethics, principle, or humanity?
You take a coin, just flip it. This is right, this is wrong. Okay. I know it's we spoke about dharma, what is good, what
Yeah.
is subjective, objective. We have spoken about that topic, right? So ethics
True.
and ethos we spoke about. There is something called ethos, which is like more like a law of gravitation force, which exists between two objects. It exists regardless of which two objects are there, and then gravity is there like ethics. Ethics is a function of a place. Something which might be ethical at one place may not be ethical at some other place, right? And what is your higher dharma in a given situation? If your house is on fire, would you save your family first, or would you go and save the village where 50 people could die? They're very tricky things. So to simplify this whole conversation, the thumb rule is to have purity of intention and sincerity at heart what you are doing, because that's the only variable you can control. There are so many variables. True dharma, absolute good, all that stuff only God knows. Nobody knows. Even Bhishma could not know that. Karan could not know that. Yudhishthir could not know that. Bhagavad Gita ends at Sarv Dharmam Parityajya Mam Ekam Sharanam Braj. So we should just focus on increasing our acceptance and surrender to God, and having a pure intention, not an intention with vested interest and trying to exploit somebody, take advantage of somebody. If we work on that aspect, then I think more often than not we'll go right. And your after feeling after you've taken an action will tell you whether the action that you did was in conjunction or was it in line with what God would have desired in that particular situation or not, would tell you. Typically, when we do something bad, our after feeling will tell us that, right? And when we do something, we hit the sweet spot, your after feeling will tell you that as well. So those are some of the simple thumb rules we can use without complicating it too much in our head. Because it's very complicated, what is good in this, what is bad in that. I don't think anybody can get it right always.
Right. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yes,
Samaran ji,
Swami.
Radhe Radhe.
We have 3 hands, so let's take that. I think
Radhe Radhe, Radhe Radhe Nitin ji. Sir, I wanted to ask a very practical question. So, like, you don't mind if so, like, I didn't mean, don't mean anything. So, like, sometimes what happens is, as we are humans, there are a lot of physical things and material things that like play with our mind, and we fell short of it. Like sometimes we fall down. So, uh, how can we change like Krishna says, surrender unto me and yeah, like give everything to me. So when the mind plays with us with all the like physical needs and everything, how can we turn that into love? Because sometimes it plays with us and we tend to like contemplate on self introspecting us that am I doing wrong, what did I do, like why did I do, and all of those things start coming into the mind. So right now, what I like sometimes what I feel, I put a question mark and tell myself that is it going to please Krishna, right? So that is what if you want, if you can add something to that, that how can I devote it to that kind of feeling, because we like that energy is so strong that it sometimes like like overpowers us. So yeah.
yeah, so I get that part. I think it might be a good question for Swamiji and SMX, right? To if you are you part of SMX, where you get a
Yeah.
face question. So you ask them. I think it's a very relevant question you can ask him, but it is a powerful emotion, right? That is why we said the lust is the perverted reflection of divine love, and it is a pretty powerful emotion. But the only way to beat that is when you keep that knowledge and remember God, right? Then only He can give you the the not only the perspective but that self-control around sailing that moment. Otherwise, it's very difficult to do that, right? Just by your intellectual speculation, it's not something, because it's an energy of God only, right? That potency is energy of God itself at play. Ask Swamiji this question in SMX, and there's another technique I can give you, but do it at your own volition and risk. You can, people try that, putting those 4 chits to Krishna. At least I don't have the guts to do that till point. You ask this question to Krishna and then stick to what the answer you get from him. 4 chits, put in front of him 4 options, maybe 5, whatever one. Pick the slip and put those answers in front of Krishna. Say, give me response around it, and you'll get the response. Okay, but you'll have to stick to that and make it your conviction. Approach it with faith. You may get an answer, but ask this question to Swamiji on SMX. I think it'll make up for a good lesson for a lot of people, I'm sure.
Yes, I think because every one of us like uh, some are in a higher state, some are in a lower state or medium state, but this is something that is very much potent with like we cannot tell that if a person is very old age that then he has overcome it. We see people who are of old age still struggling with that kind of
So
urges and emotions.
if you make only the sensual pleasure as a goal of your life, right, you will end up becoming a pigeon. Pigeons, they mate
Mm.
multiple times in a day. So that's where you bring in the knowledge and try to neutralize it, because you don't want to lead a glorified animalistic life alone, right? Humans are the only
Mm.
species who use this as a means of recreation. No other species does that. Okay. So that's where the knowledge, proper knowledge, comes in handy, where you tell yourself, nothing comes free of cost. Everything has a price tag to it. Are you willing to pay that price? If yes, go for it. If you're not willing to pay the price for it, then you have to tell your mind intellectually, we are very strong. A person who is feeling very hungry and very fond of gulab jamun can reject it if it comes to know it has poison in it. So we have the ability. It's just that we are not tapping into it and exercising it. But it would make for a good question. Please do ask Swamiji. If you're not on SMX, please do join that. It's a great way to get your questions, these kind of questions clarified him with the face-to-face interaction that we get, from him. But good question, Samiran. Let's move on. Let's take a
Thank
couple
you
of
so
because we have, or if you have a follow-up, put in the feedback tracker. We can always have an offline conversation as well. Yes, Asmita, go ahead, please.
Radhe Radhe. So my question is little similar to Samiranji's. So basically, we know that our true goal of life is to like desire the same as God's will, and like to basically show our love for God and all. But sometimes during the path you get really distracted and you completely forget your true purpose, and then you like switch back. But then after you like get distracted and you come back to your senses, you realize, oh my God, this is not what I'm supposed to do. So when you even like being distracted is very possible, especially for me. I'm very distracted easily. So I wanted to ask, how can you like still remember your true goal when you're distracted and you're completely focused on something else?
Yeah, so that is the bad news, the Hasmita, that you get distracted. The good news is we are all in the same boat. Okay, but see, that moment itself is an aha moment. When you feel that I got distracted, that moment, that particular moment is a very good inflection point, because that will enable you to get back. Same thing happens in meditation also, right? Your mind wanders and then you say, oh my God, what happened? I need to bring it back. So that moment is important. If that moment is coming, that itself is important. And then with repeated repetition, like any other thing, right, you could put some triggers for yourself. And that's when you get distracted, or when you are upset, or your mind is getting agitated, that's when we can practice this knowledge. It's extremely pleasing to God. Those are the moments He's creating for us to test us as well, right? Treat it as a test, and then get back to that normal state. Strive to get back to that normal state as quickly as possible. And over time, I think the frequency will decrease as well. And then keep that big picture in mind. End of the day, everything's temporary. I have to work for the pleasure of God. I have to put in my best. So try to go to the root of what is agitating you, or what is distracting you, and then keep triggers for yourself, right? It could be a small picture, it could be something which will make you remind. These their technology is so advanced, you can set reminders for yourself. So those kind of tools you can do, but that moment has to be celebrated. When you said, oh my God, I got distracted, that is a good moment. If you did not have that moment, then you can go on with distraction for the rest of, right? So this is a good practice, but over with repetition and with practice, I think we'll get better. It's a problem for all of us, right? Especially in this age, there are so many distractions, so many ways of getting a quick dopamine kick through watching something or thinking about. Those distractions will continue. But it's a good question, Hasmita, and I think you should make it one of the discussion point in your youth session as well, that you guys are wonderfully running. But yeah, let's discuss more if you think there's some more follow-up on that. Let's quickly take the remaining two hands, because we have 7 more minutes before the next session. Yes, Sandhya.
Okay, I actually had raised hand for Monica Deep, but she has raised hand so that she will say. One thing I wanted to add to what Hasmita said is satsang is definitely helpful in that, like regular satsang. So, like what we are having right now. So, yeah.
So, yeah, the contemplation of this knowledge on a day-to-day basis, having a regular satsang, and if you're part in seva, then these distractions or this agitation of mind will start slowing down. I can tell through my personal experience as well. And when your mind starts getting restless, jumping all around, that means one of these things has reduced in your life. But if you have all these three fundamentals going on regularly, then your mind will be in a good shape for most part of it. That agitation, restlessness, anxiety will start diminishing over time. It will come, but it will not bother you as much as it used to previously. It's a good yardstick. Yes, Monica ji.
Radhe Radhe. So out of my own experience, right? Hashmita's question and Samiranji's question. It's about distracting your mind, right? So let's say I have a very bad sweet tooth. I mean, if I look at a sweet, I have to eat it. and then chai also, right? So like how Kashmira mentioned yesterday about chanting. So I think Naam Jap or any kind of chanting, right? For me, it was Naam Jap, is Ramban. If your mind is getting distracted anywhere, just get back to Naam Jap, and it is opposite of whatever you want. So you'll get distracted. It's about that moment. The moment is gone when you start chanting. So I think that is something that can help. It's like when you're coughing, but at the same time you're talking to somebody, and let's say you're angry, or let's say you're fighting with somebody, you will not cough at that time, because your mind is not there. Your mind doesn't remember that you had to cough. So it's about distracting your mind, and I think Naam Jap is something that is Ramban, and it helps for everything.
Very, very nice. Thank you for bringing that up. In fact, we had done this activity, I think, in our session to add, Ishtadev, Radhe Govind, Radhe Radhe, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Sita Ram, whoever is your favorite Ishtadev, add that, start filling the blanks in your day with that. That will work like a magic, I'm telling you, if you get into that. Okay. And if you can supplement it with remembrance as well, nothing else, nothing like it. And see, when we are feeling thirsty and you start saying water, 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 it will not quench your thirst. But when you are thirsty, that means you are agitated in other ways and stuff like that. You start saying God's name, it will start satiating you. Just it's like a balm on your mind. That is the power in God's name, because God Himself has said, right? Bhagwan se bada Bhagwan ka naam. God's name is even greater than God, because God comes and goes. He closes his pastimes, but his name remains, and he has put all of his powers in his name. That is how powerful the name is. Right? Just by reciting Mara Mara Mara, Valmiki became Trikaldarshi. He
Yeah.
for he actually wrote down Ramayan, and also predicted the Avatar Kal, where he's going to meet Lord Ram and he's going to descend. All that power just by reciting. So that is the power in there, right? And you bring in remembrance as well, nothing like it. So Hasmita, that might be one thing you could try. Fill in the gaps in your day, rather than having wasteful thoughts. Fill it with the name, and it will do wonders for you in every walk of life, in your studies or whatever you end up doing. I've experienced it. I wish I can get into that zone again, but it is very, very powerful. Great, great discussion. We have few
And
more.
Nitinji, sorry, just another 30 seconds. Personally, it has actually worked on my anger. My friends around me, especially, and my husband, my kid, and everybody who knows me can vouch for it that it magically worked for me. I mean, I used to get like spikes of anger. I would just react on the spot. Now it's like, Sant ban gayi hai, kya ho gaya hai? I don't know how it worked, but it just worked. It definitely has power. So I just wanted to share this experience that try this out, and I'm 100% sure this is going to work.
People do so many workshops for anger management and stuff. Here you are giving a Ramban directly. So thank you for sharing that. It'll be, I'm sure, very inspiring for a lot of people. Okay, last hand for the day, Minuji, before we wrap it up and hand it over
Yeah.
to the anything.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe, yes, I totally agree. And Maharaji said, if you get distracted, start doing Radhe Sham, deep breathing with Roop Dhyan.
Radhe Sham with Roop Dhyan. It chimed
Deep
so
breathing,
well.
Radhe Sham, deep breathing with Roop Dhyan.
In fact,
That's
if
the
you do
best
this
medicine
practice,
for
yeah, in fact, he had given that, challenge I've not been able to do. I mean, it's easier said than done. You just do Radhe, Radhe, Radhe for 10 days and say, he said, you will get a big kalyan will happen. Just do Radhe, Radhe. And until it becomes your default setting. Default setting means even when you wake up, it's just going on. That chanting is going on inside you. So let's practice that. Okay. As a group, let's practice it and see it and keep on reminding each other.
Just to mention this, I am doing it nowadays. It's happening by default now, as you said.
I can see that, Shyamji, the way you do that Sumiran Karle Mana with Sumiran, a lot of magic is happening already. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a great practice to do that. If there's one takeaway from that, bring in chants and start practicing it and keep reminding each other, okay, to inspire each other as well. Let's do that. Tomorrow we will Gopi Prem Divas. By the way, if you have already signed up as an angel, tomorrow's contribution will directly go to the university. So it's a good opportunity for you to replenish your, fundraiser, reach out to people. So it's a very auspicious occasion as well. And we will conclude our discussion with, the true love aspect of it, and just conclude it, the session series that we are having around this topic. But do take a look at that as well, for the fundraiser standpoint as well. So with that said, I think it's time now. So I can see Ajay is there. Yes, Ajay and Sunil Bhai, over to you. Radhe Radhe, good night, good day from my side. Please do fill out the feedback tracker as well. Thank you, everybody.
Radhe Radhe. See you tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.